Hello everyone, I'm DivenDerp in-game, Rubber Ducky out, and this is a tutorial I wanted to do on how to add toggle breaking to the standard Lua you get with a flight controller, like a piloting seat or remote control. Uh, if you're like me, then things like Dementia's HUD and Arch HUDs are really nice, but they come with a lot, and honestly, 80-90% of them are things I don't care about or use, and generally I prefer like a very simple HUD, simple controls, and so I like to just add the things I care about to my own ships. And so I thought it'd be nice if I shared some about how to do some of this as well, especially since toggle breaking is a thing a lot of people enjoy. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into it. This isn't necessarily a tutorial on how to code. It's more of a follow along and you reap the rewards. But I will go into a little bit of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how the coding works. But let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do, just so you know, run a default autoconfigure, flying construct. Go ahead and run that so you know it's base Lua, advanced, and a Lua script. So now down here are the items I have connected to my pilot seat. Up here are kind of the standards, library, quote unquote, things you get with all Lua in DU. Right now, though, we're concerned with immediately the library. This is where you would come to add custom code. Create your own code libraries for your control units, control seats, whatever. And we're going to add one here, a filter. And we're going to select start. And so what's going to happen is anything we put in start is going to fire when we first get into the seat. So on startup, basically. But for right now, we're just going to create a variable is breaking equal false. Okay. So what this is a variable. A variable is a thing in code that can hold a value, and a value is something, and it can change throughout the code. So what we're saying is we're creating a variable, we're calling it is breaking, and we're giving it the value false. Now a variable can hold all kinds of things. It can hold text, it can hold numbers, it can hold other code, it can hold it can hold complex objects, it can hold all kinds of things. But in this case, we're just want to hold either true or false. And so we're going to create it as breaking, and we're going to initiate it to false. Now, a little caveat here. I like my toggle breaking to not be immediately braked when I first get my vehicle. If you would like the toggle breaking to break immediately upon you getting into vehicle, just change this to true. This is just the state it's going to start up in. So I like mine to not be braked immediately, so I'm going to set mine to false. All right, so next thing, we need to actually add the breaking, the is breaking to the actual flying code. So for that, we go over to the system, and we're going to look for one that's already created for us by default, called action start break. All right, so we found that. So this is action start break. And so this is what gets called when you hold down your braking key, or not hold down, but press your braking key. So action start, action start is when you press down, action loop is when you're holding it down, and action stop is when you let go of the button for your braking. For me, it's control, but I don't know what it's going to be for you. All right. So the way this works, without going into too much detail, is just this first line here, basically. And a +1 to brake input basically means you're braking. A -1, a -1, means that you're not braking. And so when you hold control, it adds +1 and you get braking. Now, we don't want to have to hold down the button to brake. We want to toggle. So we need to add a way to determine if we're toggled or not. So let's go back to library. We're going to start again, and now we're going to add a function. We're going to define a function. And a function is just a block of code that we give a name. We define what it does, what it takes, and what it gives back. And we can call it anywhere in our code over and over as much as we want. We define a chunk of code, and we get to call it anywhere. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can do that with function, and then we need to name it. I'm going to call this one ternary, and I'll get into what the name means here in a second. But you could call this anything. You could call it Christmas. You could call it whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. And then we need to define if it takes anything. And so basically, we give it a name of ternary, and these little circle braces here, we either tell it takes nothing, which is basically leaving them empty, or in this case, we're going to give it a condition, which we're going to call C, and also a return value if it's true, which we're going to call X, and a return value if it's false, which we're going to call Y. Then we need to end this function. And so now anything we put in between this function declaration and end will get called anytime we call ternary and pass in a condition, a return if true, and a return if false. But now we need to write the actual code we're going to call. So that's an if statement. So if C, which is our condition, and the condition is either true or false. So if C is true, then we want to do a return. Oops, let me get this right. Return. Ooh, that's not working. There we go. Return. Spell it right. X. So if C is true, then return X. Else, return Y. And we're going to end this if statement like we did the function with an end. And so again, to read this correctly, if the condition is true, then return X. Else, if it's false, return Y. And so how this works is whatever condition we put in here, when tested, if it's true, we'll return X, whatever we throw as X, and then it will return, if its condition is false, then it'll return Y. Okay, so let's see this in action. So let's go ahead and copy this guy here, Control C. We're gonna go back to our system, and we're gonna look for that action start break. There it is. And right here, we're gonna do ternary. So we're calling that value or that function, and now we're gonna pass it in our value, our variable we created, which is breaking. And if it's true, we're going to return 1 because again, +1 is breaking. And if it's false, so we're going to turn -1, which remember, -1 means we're not breaking. So breaking, not breaking, and turn is based upon the is breaking. Now we need to flip this. So again, action start is what takes place when we hold a button down, in this case breaking. And so we need to flip the bit, as it would be, to basically be, if they click the break button, then if we are currently breaking, then we need to stop breaking. And if we're not breaking, then we need to start breaking. And so is breaking is equal to not is breaking. Oh, it helped I could spell it right. There you go. Is breaking equal not is breaking. And so how this works is, if this is true, then now we're setting it to not true. If this is false, then we're setting it to not false, which is true. So it flips for us anytime we hit control. So now how this should work is breaking is flipped, and then whatever is breaking is after that line is declared will determine whether or not we are returning a 1 and breaking, or returning -1 and not breaking. And then all this down here is basically kind of the stock flying that does all the math for actually how the flying and breaking happen and stuff like that. So it's a little heavy into weeds. We're not going to get into this, but all you need to really concern about is just these two lines up here. All right. Now, we need to go into, at the very least, the action stop, because it sets it back to, so the way it works stockly is that you hold it down, you're breaking. When you let go, you stop breaking. The way that works is it flips it back to -1 as soon as you stop breaking. We don't want to do that because we want it to toggle break for as long as we have it toggled. So we just got to comment this line out. And how we do that is 2 little dashes here. And notice how it gets grayed out. Those 2 dashes basically tell it, hey, just ignore this line. You're not supposed to actually run this code. Just ignore it. So that's what we're going to do. And I believe action loop is okay. Let's take a look. Action loop break. Yeah, that's just doing that crazy flight math. So let's leave that alone. All right, so now let's test this. I'm somewhere in a weird orbit around Alioth, I believe. So if I get this controller, get an outside look at my ship, and my brakes are on the bottom. So if I hit my brake button, they should lock. There you go. I'm slowing down. And if I tap it again, they should release. There you go. You got toggle braking. Awesome. Now, the other thing is, it'd be kind of nice if I had some kind of visual representation so that I knew I was braking or not. So let's go ahead and add that in now. All right, so now we're going to go advanced, edit Lewis script. We're going to go back to system, and we're going to look for one called update. There we go. Okay. So how update works is basically, I believe in DU it's called basically once a frame. But the general is it's called a bunch of times a second. And it's a great way of running calculations that need to run a bunch, but also just displaying things to the user that need to update regularly. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to create a local variable. We're going to call it content. And we're going to set it equal to an empty string. And a string is just a combination of characters, words, paragraphs, sentences, whatever. And they're denoted by that. So anything I put in between those two little ticks there, so the brown fox, I misspelled all of that, that's okay, is now a string. So I could take this string and throw it anywhere that takes a string or whatever. But in our case, we're going to throw something called an SVG there. But let's go ahead and get this started. So the first thing we need to do is define what we're going to throw up on screen. The way the HUDs work is they'll take HTML and they'll take SVGs. And also take like some standard text, I believe. But in general, if you're going to display something in the HUD, you want to use either HTML or SVGs or a combination of both. We're going to use an SVG. Now, I'm not going to get into like the weeds of how SVGs work, but they're pretty simple to learn and they're super powerful. So if you want to start doing your own custom stuff, I suggest spending just like a little time of SVGs. It literally takes no time at all to learn how SVGs work, and it takes only a minimal amount of effort to become really good at SVGs, and they're super powerful. But let's go ahead and just create something here. We're gonna get some lines. Content is equal to content ... another string. Okay, and so now the way this works here, I've declared this variable as local. So this is just a variable like isBreaking. I've called it content. But local means that I can't see it outside of this update method. Unlike isBreaking, where I could see it basically anywhere else in the code. Like I could see it in the action updates. This local content, it's local to this guy only. I only want to ever be able to see it here. And there's a reason for doing that, but that's kind of more knowledge dump that I really want to give right now. So let's go ahead and skip that for now. And I don't know Svg syntax off the top of my head, so I'm going to Google that real super quick. So let's get an SVG here. SVG text, because we're just going to do a text element. And like I'm just Googling basic text SVGs on Google. It's super easy. Like I code day night. I like it stuff all the time. Being a good coder is really about being really good at Googling, not so much knowing absolutely everything there is to know about code. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this, and we're going to take out the stuff we don't care about, which is most of it. And now we're going to declare the width and the height. Since you want this SVG to take up the whole screen, we want to access the whole screen, we're just going to do a width of 100%, and that basically means the width of the whole screen. And same with the height, we're going to do 100% height. And next we're going to do a closing tag for the SVG. Okay, and this is basically like our operating area for the SVG. So SVGs and HTML work with these little tag syntax here, where you have a tag of properties and then you close the property. And then anything you put inside that will display with this SVG. So let's go ahead and copy this line. And we're going to add a text to this SVG. So let's get the text. We go find this real super quick. Aha, here we go. Basic text. And again, I'm just Googling this. It's super easy to Google. All right. And so now the X and Y here are basically where on the screen it's going to show. Because again, now it declares the 100% width and 100% height. We have access to basically the whole screen. And an X here is defined by pixels. And so it is from the left. So 10 pixels from the left of the screen. Or, you know, for the Y is 10 pixels from the top of the screen. So the higher this number goes, the further from the top of the screen it goes down. Same with X. The higher this number, the further from the left it goes, closer to the right. Okay. So we want this to be center of the screen. Or not center of the screen, but kind of like top center. So for Y, I think we can set it at 100. And that should be far enough down for us to see. But the Y is a little more complicated. So for that, we actually need to create a new variable and get a value from the system. So we're going to go to library, start. We're going to get a whole new variable here, and we're going to call it screen width. Had to think there for a second. And we're going to set it equal to, and I don't know this off the top of my head, but this is where I'm going to show you the scripting codex. So we're going to go apply, which basically saves our progress so far. F1, bring up the codex, go down to scripting, and now we're looking for system. So element API, and what we care about is in the system. And we're looking for the screen width. And all these are things that we can call and you can read. There's all kinds of crazy things you can do with this. But we're looking for one that gets us the screen size. Because I don't know what your screen size is. And so, here we go. If I need to know if I'm creating, something to display on the screen, then everyone's screen is not the same size. And so basically you need a way of getting to know and working around what someone's screen size is. So we get screen width here. Now remember, we're getting this from system.get screen width, and that matters because when we call this in our code, we need to say first system.get screen width. And basically that just tells, this is just telling it where it needs to look, which is system, to find this method here. And this is just going to return the screen width of the person currently using it. And so now that we have that, we're going to copy this variable here, copy screen width, go back to system, go back to update, and in here, instead of putting a 10, what we're going to do is concatenate. So we're going to break this string apart, two little ticks, so now it's two strings. And then what these two little periods here do is they concatenate two different strings. And so I'm basically saying, okay, break these strings apart, and then in the middle here, I'm going to throw in something else. And that is going to be our screen width variable divided by 2. So half the screen width, which is the middle. All right. And then we're going to do a math.floor. Math is another library we have access to. There are a bunch of different functions you can use to do with math. Now, in this case, the text element here, the X really needs to be a number that has no, decimal places. It needs to be a solid 1, 2, 3, 10. It's not really supposed to be 10.8 or 100.2. It's supposed to be a solid number. What floor does is round down. It rounds it down to its nearest whole number. And so that's what we want. So it'll be not perfectly centered, but it'll basically be perfectly centered, which is what we want. We'll go ahead and change. So the text that we want to display needs to be in here. And we just want to say breaking. So, and we'll do a little exclamation point there. So notice that it's in between the closing tag and the opening tag of the text SVG input. So that's where you put that. Next, we need to define its color, which is, notice, fill. I don't know why they just call it color, but fill. There you go. So now for our fill, we're going to do RGB, little curly braces here, because it's basically kind of an SVG method, kind of. And we're going to do SVG codes, which are 3 numbers from 0 to 255 that basically define colors. We want neon red. And so for neon red, it is going to be 255 4949. Oop, 49. There we go. So that should be neon red. We also want the text to be centered on this point on X. Now, normally SVGs center on the start, so the X is where the breaking would start, so this B here. We want it to kind of be in the middle of the word, which is like somewhere right about here, about the middle of the K. And there's a setting we can do. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's text anchor, so text. If I can spell it right, text anchor equal middle, I think. Let me Google that real quick. Like I said, being a good programmer is just about being able to Google really, really well. SVG text anchor. Yep, text anchor. So assuming I spelled that right, which I think I did, that should be good. And now we also want to bold it. We want to, you're breaking. It's bold. And I don't remember what the boldness is, so I'm going to look at that real quick. SVG, text, bold. Font weight. Okay, so the property is called font weight. So we're just going to copy and paste that. Nothing wrong with copy and paste. All right, there you go. Font weight. So now we have defined SVG. That should be the middle of the screen. Near the top, and you can adjust that as you want. You can put it anywhere you want if you don't want it dead on your screen. Starts in the middle, the point starts in the middle of the word. It is bolded, and it should be a neon red. The text breaking. So now we have declared this content here. Now we need to show it, and for that we need to go back to the codex. So apply, F1, go down to, again, scripting, element API, system, and it should be near the top system, I believe. Yeah. So first we need to tell them we're going to show a screen. Advanced, Lua script. We want system, update. And like the other one, because we're calling it from system, we need to do system dot. And it says a bool, and what the bool means is true or false. So if something is true or false, it's known as a boolean. But in this case, we're, instead of passing it true or false, we're going to pass it 1. Basically means the same thing as true. So true is 1, false is 0. And then there's another one, system dot, where we pass the content, but I don't, if I can spell system right, system dot, remember what it is, so let's go grab that as well. So F1, again, element API, system, set screen. So this is where we set the content. Advanced, add a Lua script, system, update, content. Now, it just happened that I called this content and the variable is taking in this content, but technically, if I had called this, you know, my SVG, then I could just put my SVG in here and it would all work. The caveat being it has to be the same case. So if it's, You know, if I capitalize the C, then this C needs to be capitalized. But it's all lowercase, it's all spelled the same, so it's good to go. So now we need to determine when we're going to show this. So we're going to do another if statement here. Actually, we're going to call ternary. So that's good. Yeah, let's call ternary. So ternary. So we're calling our ternary code again because we have access to it. And we're going to say is breaking. So we're testing is breaking. Are we break or not? And if it's true, we're going to pass back content. If it's not true, then we're going to pass back an empty string. So basically nothing. So each frame is going to see if it needs to show the screen, and each frame is going to say, okay, set the screen, and whether it shows the breaking text or not is based upon if is breaking is true. If is breaking is true, then we're going to return the content, which is the SVG we initialized up there. Else we're going to return an empty string. So let's see if that works. So apply, pilot, okay. We're going to get out here so I can see a little bit more. And break. And there you go. You got a break kind of in the center of the screen. Although it's kind of small, so let's do something about that. Advanced. Lua script. System. Update. Oh, it looks like my daughter just came to join us. Oh, happy day. Let's do, and I think that tag for that is font size. Font size equal. Do one more property. And 2em. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, so let me go look real quick. SVG font size. Aha, yes, I am correct. All right, so it is just copy and paste this. Yeah, okay. And now 2em is just a sizing scheme. There's all kinds like pixel and I think RM and there's a few others. EM is just one I use. You don't have to use it, but you can change it. So the smaller the number gets, you know, 0.01, the smaller the text, the larger it gets, the larger the text. So let's do 2.75. That should be fairly large. So pilot, insert, break. Yeah. Although I can't help but notice it's not really centered correctly. So I'm thinking I might have that tag wrong. So let's exercete again. I'm going to pilot, advanced, and a Lua script, system, update, there it is. And we're going to text anchor. I bet oh, there it is. Text anchor, not test anchor. Apply, pilot, breaks out here again, and break. And look at that. We're slowing down breaking. Tap again and release the break. That's how we got toggle breaking. Now, like I said, this hasn't been an introductory to code per se. So much it is a just follow along. But I am considering doing a series on learning to code in DU, as well as helping people create other useful scripts. If people are interested in that, if that's something people would like, I'd be happy to do that, do a whole series on that. But really, that's going to depend on if people find it useful or not. If no one really is interested in that, I don't want to put the time and effort into it. But if people do want more content on how to Luas or how to Lua in DU, I'm more than happy to put sort of time and effort in videos. If you liked it, like, subscribe, the whole YouTube spiel. If you really liked it, use my recruiter code, which I'll put down in the description, so that I get those sweet, sweet recruiter rewards. I really want those little drawbridges colors. Those look so cool. Anyway, I hope this was useful. If you have questions, PM me, message me, Discord me, comment, all that jazz, let me know. All right, this is DivenDerp in game. Rubber Ducky signing out. You have a good one.